Have you ever looked at the birth chart of someone who was eaten alive by a crocodile? I have. American model Ginger Faye Meadows was killed by a massive saltwater crocodile while holidaying in Australia. The trip had been inspired by the Hollywood blockbuster Crocodile Dundee. Wanting to experience Australia's untamed wilderness for herself, Ginger traveled to one of the country's most isolated regions. She and her friend were repeatedly warned not to enter the water. In fact, they were told not even to dangle their feet above the water surface because the river was heavily infested with enormous saltwater crocodiles. Despite those warnings, the two women decided to go swimming. But before we look at what happened next, take a look at the extraordinary birth chart Ginger Faye Meadows left behind. Ginger's horoscope has Karkotak Kaal Sarp Yog, one of the forms of Kaal Sarp Yog that keeps appearing in some of the most disturbing horoscopes I have researched. But that isn't the only affliction in her birth chart. Her moon is conjunct Ketu, forming the second type of Chandra Grahan Dosh. Saturn is conjunct Ketu, forming the second type of Shraapit Dosh. Her moon is also conjunct Saturn, forming Vish Yog. In other words, Ginger's horoscope has Karkotak Kaal Sarp Yog together with three other highly malefic astrological combinations. Now, back to Australia, because what happened next was truly horrifying. Ignoring the repeated warnings, Ginger and her friend entered the water. A group of people watching from above suddenly noticed something moving towards them. It was a massive saltwater crocodile. They immediately began shouting and screaming, desperately trying to warn the two women. When Ginger and her friend turned around, they instantly realized the danger they were in. But there was a problem. Behind them was the rock face beneath the waterfall. They were trapped. Ginger tried to outswim the crocodile. She never stood a chance. Within seconds, the crocodile caught her and dragged her beneath the water. Moments later, Ginger resurfaced, but not in the way anyone was expecting. She appeared inside the crocodile's jaws, looking towards her terrified friend, as if trying to understand what was happening. Then the enormous reptile pulled her beneath the surface once again. Ginger Faye Meadows was never seen alive again. The following day would have been Ginger Faye Meadows' 25th birthday. The following day would have been Ginger Faye Meadows' 25th birthday. Instead, investigators recovered her remains from inside the crocodile. It was a horrifying tragedy and it cost two lives. A young woman lost her life after ignoring repeated warnings, and a magnificent saltwater crocodile. An animal that was simply living in its natural habitat was ultimately killed because of human stupidity. That wasn't the end of the story. Another case came immediately to mind. Marathi actor Mahesh Pawar also had Kaal Sarp Yog in his horoscope. He too died tragically just one day after his 25th birthday. Two completely different lives, two completely different tragedies. Yet, both raise fascinating questions about the patterns that appear in these horoscopes. This is exactly why extremely malefic combinations, conjunctions, and placements like kaalsarpyog, Shraapit Dosh, Vish Yog, and Chandra Grahan Dosh should never be taken lightly. Ginger Faye Meadows' birth chart is just one of the many extraordinary case studies I have uncovered during years of researching the dark side of Vedic astrology. The disturbing part isn't Ginger Faye Meadows' birth chart. The disturbing part is how many people could be living with Kaal Sarp Yog and other curses without ever knowing what's written in their own horoscope.